The evening was quiet, a kind of quiet that made every small sound feel louder. The town had already gone to sleep, and only a few dim lights glowed from faraway houses. In a small workshop on the edge of that town, a lone handyman was busy fixing an old generator. His place was simple wooden walls, a tin roof, a few tools hanging on hooks, and the warm smell of metal and oil that always filled the air. He enjoyed evenings like this. No noise, no rush, just him and his work. He wiped his hands on an old cloth and leaned closer to the generator, trying to understand why it kept shutting off. As he tightened a bolt, he heard something strange outside. At first, he ignored it, thinking it might be the wind pushing against the trees. But the sound came again, soft at first, then deeper, almost shaking the air around him. He put his tools down and stood still. It wasn't a normal sound. It wasn't an animal he recognized. It wasn't machinery. It wasn't even something he'd ever heard from the nearby forest. It was a mix of a trembling growl and a cry from something that seemed both strong and hurt. He stepped toward the door slowly. His heart started to beat faster, but curiosity always got the better of him. Every time something unusual happened in the area, people called him because he was the one person who didn't panic easily. But this sound made even him hesitate. Still, he pushed the wooden door open. Cold air rushed in, and the sky outside glowed with silver clouds. The moon peeked between them, casting a pale light across the trees. For a moment, everything looked normal. The grass moved gently, the wind brushed past, and the familiar smell of night settled around him. Then he saw it. A large shadow moved near the tree line. It swayed as if struggling to stand. The handyman froze, gripping the doorframe. As the shadow stepped forward, the moonlight revealed something he would never forget, that it was a creature unlike anything from Earth. Huge wings, folded tight against its sides. Scales that shimmered faintly like stars on water. Long horns that curved back smoothly. Eyes glowing softly, not with anger, but with something he could only describe as pain and desperation. And in the creature's arms, if those strong forelimbs could be called arms, was something small and weak. A baby. A baby creature of the same kind. His breath caught in his throat. He didn't know whether to run, hide, or simply stand there. But what truly held him in place were the creature's eyes. They weren't wild. They weren't angry. They were pleading. The giant creature took one slow, heavy step toward the workshop. Then another. Every movement looked difficult, as if it was fighting exhaustion. When it got closer, he saw something unbelievable, tears rolling down its face. Real tears. Big, shimmering drops that fell onto the dry leaves. The creature wasn't attacking. It wasn't hunting. It wasn't even trying to scare him. It was crying. He slowly raised his hands to show he meant no harm. His voice trembled a little when he said, "I'm not going to hurt you." The creature blinked slowly, almost as if it understood. Then, with great care, it lowered the small baby dragon onto the ground right in front of him. The baby was not moving much. Its breath came in weak shivers, and tiny glowing patterns along its body flickered dimly. Like a light bulb losing power, the mother creature bowed her head, letting out a sound that felt like a mix of a sob and a soft rumble. She nudged the baby forward gently with her nose, then looked straight at the handyman again. It didn't take words to understand what she wanted. She wanted help. The handyman knelt slowly beside the baby, trying not to make any sudden movements. Up close, the small creature looked fragile, despite its unusual form. Its skin was smooth but cool, and its breathing was uneven, like it was struggling for air. He could feel the mother dragon's warm breath on his shoulder as she bent low to watch him. He'd fixed all kinds of things, machines, engines, tools, even the occasional injured bird he found on the roadside. But an alien infant was something he had never expected. He whispered softly, It's okay. Let me see what's wrong." His voice was calm, even though his heart was racing. The mother dragon made a low, worried hum as he gently touched the baby's side. It didn't react, except for a weak shiver. He looked up at the mother dragon, trying to interpret the situation. "You brought your baby to me. Why me?" Of course, she couldn't answer. But the way she lowered her body, staying as close to the ground as possible, showed trust. Or maybe it was simply her last hope. He carefully picked up the small creature, surprised at how light it was. Its glowing patterns, almost like tiny veins of light, were fading, which made him even more concerned. He turned toward his workshop door and slowly carried the baby inside. Glancing back at the mother, she followed, not aggressively, not threatening in any way. Instead, she moved slowly, ducking her head to fit inside the structure. Her wings stayed close to her body, and she stepped carefully, making sure not to break anything. The workshop felt strangely small with her inside, but her presence was gentle. She sat down near the entrance, watching every move he made. He placed the baby on a soft cloth on his work table. Inside, the warm light made the tiny creature glow faintly. He checked its breathing again. It was getting weaker. He grabbed a small flashlight and gently examined its chest, noticing spots that seemed dimmer than the rest. He didn't know alien biology, but he recognized the signs of something fading like a device losing energy. Maybe this creature survived on something Earth didn't have much of. Maybe the atmosphere was hurting it. Something was draining its natural glow. He moved around the workshop, opening drawers, looking for anything that could help. He wasn't a doctor. He wasn't a scientist. But he had a mind that always worked toward solutions, even when things didn't make sense. The mother dragon watched with deep, trembling breaths. She made small, worried sounds every time the baby's breathing hitched. He glanced at her and gave a soft nod, as if saying, "I'm trying." He found an old heating pad he once used for injured animals. He plugged it in and placed it under the cloth, hoping warmth might help. The baby dragon's small body twitched a little, and for a moment its glow brightened, just slightly. The mother dragon leaned closer, her massive head lowering until her nose almost touched the baby. She let out a soft sound, like a lullaby, deep and trembling. The handyman felt a small wave of relief. "Okay, maybe that's helping," he whispered, but the little creature was still very weak. He remembered something from a few years back, a strange glowing mineral he'd found near a small meteor crash site. The stone had pulsed gently in his hand, almost like a heartbeat. He stored it in a drawer because it looked interesting, but never figured out what it was. He wondered if whatever energy that stone had might help the baby, but that stone wasn't here anymore. He had tossed it back into the woods months ago, unsure whether it was safe to keep Dot as he stood there thinking. The mother dragon made a sudden, low cry that echoed through the workshop. It wasn't loud, but it was filled with fear. She curled her body protectively around the baby, nudging it softly as if begging it not to stop breathing. He reached out and placed his hand gently on the baby's side again. "Hang in there? Please." The mother dragon's breathing slowed a little, as if his calm voice was helping her hold herself together. He knew one thing for sure. He couldn't let this tiny creature fade away. No matter how strange or impossible the situation was, he felt a responsibility, a deep human instinct to help something helpless. And the trust in the mother dragon's eyes pushed him even more. He stepped closer to her and spoke softly. "I think I know something that might help. Not here, but somewhere else. I might need to go get it." The moment he stepped back, the mother dragon lifted her head sharply, watching him as if afraid he might leave and never come back. He raised his hand gently, reassuring her. "I'm not abandoning you. I just need something important." She lowered her head again, but her eyes stayed locked on him. She understood enough to let him move. He walked to the doorway and looked out at the dark woods. The place where he had thrown the glowing mineral wasn't too far, but going there at night wasn't easy. Still, he didn't feel afraid, not with the mother dragon trusting him, and not with the baby's life depending on him. He turned back toward her. "I'll go get what I need. You stay here with your little one." She lifted her head, making a soft rumble, as if giving permission. He nodded once, took a deep breath, and stepped outside into the cool, quiet night, ready to search for something he hoped would save a life. And behind him, inside the workshop, the mother dragon wrapped her tail around her weak baby and stared after him with the eyes of a parent who had placed all her hope in a human she had met just minutes ago. The night felt colder than before as he stepped into the open air, but he didn't waste time thinking about himself. Every second mattered. Inside his workshop, the mother dragon was waiting with her sick baby, hoping he would return with something that could help. Even though she couldn't speak, her eyes had said everything. She had given him her trust, and now he carried the weight of that trust on his shoulders. He moved quickly down the small dirt path, the moon lighting his way. The trees whispered softly as the wind passed through them, and every now and then he heard distant sounds of night animals moving in the forest. Normally, these woods made him feel calm, but tonight the silence felt heavier. He kept imagining the baby dragon's weak breathing, the way its tiny body had flickered like a dying light. He walked faster. The crash site wasn't too far, just past the thick line of trees behind his workshop. Years ago, a meteor had fallen there, leaving a small crater. The area still carried an unusual energy in the air. He remembered how, one evening, he had found a glowing mineral among the rocks. It had felt warm, almost alive. He didn't know its purpose back then, and he didn't realize it might one day be the very thing needed to save a creature from another world. When he finally reached the place, the crater looked almost the same as he remembered. Soft blue light shimmered between the rocks, faint but still visible. He crouched down and began searching around, brushing aside dry leaves and pushing away small stones. "Come on. It has to be here," he whispered to himself. He searched deeper, moving rocks one by one. His fingers were getting numb from the cold, but he didn't stop. After a few minutes, his hand brushed against something smooth. He quickly uncovered it, and there it was, the glowing mineral dot. It pulsed gently, like a heartbeat. He held it up, and its glow shone across his hands. It felt warm, not hot, just warm enough to bring a sense of hope. Without wasting another moment, he stood up and started back toward the workshop. Holding the mineral carefully dot, his footsteps were fast now, almost running. He didn't want the baby dragon to lose any more strength. The forest seemed darker than before, but he didn't slow down. The thought of the mother dragon waiting, watching the door with trembling breath, pushed him forward. When the workshop finally came into view, he felt a wave of relief. Soft light glowed through the window. The mother dragon was still inside. He could see her shadow stretching across the floor. He stepped inside, breathless. The mother dragon lifted her head immediately. Her eyes locked onto the glowing mineral in his hand. For the first time, he saw something new in her eyes. Hope. He approached the work table where the baby dragon lay. The tiny creature's breathing had become even weaker. Its glowing patterns were dimmer, almost gone. The mother dragon moved closer, lowering her massive head beside the table. She watched him with desperate intensity, as if trying to understand every move he made. He placed the mineral near the baby dragon. The soft light washed over its body. For a moment, nothing happened. The baby didn't move. The mother dragon gave a soft, trembling cry. He frowned. Maybe it needs to be activated. He remembered how the mineral had glowed brighter when he first picked it up near the crater, and he looked at the mother dragon. She lifted her head slightly, noticing his gaze. I think you need to warm it, he said softly, hoping she would understand. The mother dragon looked at the mineral, then at him again. Slowly, she lowered her head toward it. She opened her mouth just slightly and released a gentle breath of warm air, not heat strong enough to harm, just a warm, soft exhale that carried the same energy she had used to comfort her child. The moment her breath touched the mineral, it lit up brighter, glowing like a small star. The baby dragon reacted immediately. Its tiny body twitched. The fading light under its skin flickered back to life, faint but visible. The handyman couldn't stop the relieved gasp that escaped him. It's working. It's actually working. The mother dragon let out a low, hopeful rumble. She leaned closer, watching every small movement of her child, but the baby still looked weak, and the glow wasn't steady. The handyman realized they needed to amplify the mineral's energy, or perhaps mix it with something the baby could take in directly. He picked up a small glass bowl. Maybe this will help. He carefully placed the glowing mineral inside and added clean water from a jug. As the mineral touched the water, the liquid shimmered with light. Gentle waves of blue sparkles spread through it. It looked almost magical, like something born from another world. The mother dragon watched with wide, anxious eyes. He stirred the water slowly until the glow spread evenly. Then he took a small cloth, dipped it into the glowing liquid, and gently placed it on the baby dragon's chest. The effect was immediate. The baby's breathing eased slightly, becoming a little more steady. Its glowing patterns brightened, spreading up its neck and across its small wings. The mother dragon made a soft humming sound, one that carried deep emotional relief. She lowered her head beside the table and brushed her nose gently against the baby. The handyman watched silently. The sight touched him more than he expected. He'd helped many creatures before, but nothing like this, nothing so strange, yet so familiar in emotion. A mother afraid for her child, desperate for help, grateful for even the smallest sign of improvement. The baby dragon slowly opened its eyes. They were weak, but they had a faint sparkle inside them. The mother dragon let out a soft, trembling cry of joy, nudging her child gently. The baby responded with a soft sound, barely audible, but it was enough to make the mother dragon's eyes shine. The handyman let out a long breath. He hadn't realized he was holding, but he also knew this wasn't enough. The baby dragon wasn't safe yet. It still needed more care, more energy. He wasn't sure how much time they had, but he would try everything he could. He dipped the cloth again and lightly pressed it along the baby's sides, making sure the glowing water touched the dimmest areas. He noticed certain spots brightened quickly, while others took longer. It was like repairing something delicate, slow, careful. Gentle Dot, the mother dragon, watched him closely, her eyes following every movement. Occasionally, she made low, comforting sounds to keep the baby calm. At one point, she lowered her head near him, brushing her forehead lightly against his arm. He froze for a moment, surprised. It was a gesture of trust, a gesture of connection. He gave her a small nod, whispering, "We're doing this together." Minutes turned into an hour. The workshop was filled with the soft glow of the mineral water and the mother dragon's quiet hum. The baby's breathing continued to improve little by little. The tiny creature stretched its wings once, slowly, almost testing them. The light under its skin glowed brighter than before, but was still not steady. Dot. He placed the mineral back in the bowl to keep the water active. Then he took a moment to sit down, exhausted but hopeful. The mother dragon watched him, tilting her head slightly, as if sensing his tiredness. He gave her a faint smile. "I'm okay. Just tired. But your baby? Your baby is getting better." She lowered her head and rested it near her child, curling her long neck protectively around it. Even in her exhaustion, her focus stayed on her young one. He leaned forward again, checking the baby's pulse, its breathing, its colors. He had no book to guide him, no medical tools designed for alien creatures, no idea how things were supposed to work. Yet somehow, every small thing he did seemed to help. Maybe humans didn't need to understand everything. Sometimes caring was enough. Sometimes compassion found a way through the impossible. The baby dragon slowly lifted its head for the first time since the night began. It let out a soft, tiny chirp. The sound was faint, but full of life. The mother dragon reacted instantly, her eyes filling with emotion. She nudged the baby gently and made a sound that was almost like a whisper, deep and warm. The handyman felt a lump in his throat. "You're getting stronger," he murmured, but he knew the baby wasn't fully safe yet. The change was happening, but slowly. They still had a long way to go. The mineral water had helped, but something else was missing, something that could fully restore the baby's fading energy. He looked at the glowing mineral, thinking. The mother dragon watched him as if waiting for his next move. He whispered to himself, "This is helping. But it might not be enough. We need more." His eyes flicked toward the woods again, toward the place where he had found the mineral. Maybe there were more pieces. Maybe the real source of energy was still out there. He looked at the mother dragon. She stared back, already knowing he was about to leave again. He stepped closer to her and gently placed his hand on her side. "I know what we need to do, but it means we have to go out there. Together." She lifted her head, her tired eyes filled with determination. And in that moment, without words, both understood what had to be done next. The workshop felt warmer now because of the soft glow from the mineral water, but the air inside was still heavy with worry. The baby dragon was breathing better, yet its body still flickered like a candle that could go out if the wind got too strong. The mother dragon didn't move from its side, not even for a second. She stayed curled around her little one, her wings slightly open as if shielding the baby from everything in the world. The handyman stood a few steps away, watching them quietly. His clothes were dusty, his hands were tired, and his mind was full of questions, but he didn't let confusion slow him down. What mattered most right now was keeping that tiny creature alive. He knew the glowing mineral had helped. The baby dragon had reacted to it, but the reaction had been small, not enough to fully stabilize its fading energy. The mineral water had given the baby a spark of strength, but not the full recovery. He looked down at the small bowl that still glowed faintly, then looked back at the weak patterns on the baby's skin. The answer felt clear now. They needed more of that energy, more of the glowing mineral. Maybe pieces of it were still in the crater. Maybe there was something larger, something deeper in the woods that the mother dragon recognized. After all, she had come to his workshop instead of anywhere else. Perhaps she had followed a trace of that same energy, hoping he had it. He turned to the mother dragon. She lifted her head the moment he moved, her eyes alert but tired. Her gaze stayed on him, waiting for some sign. He stepped closer and spoke softly. "We need more of that glow. The baby needs more energy. Something stronger." The mother dragon didn't understand the words, but she understood the tone. She looked at her baby, nudged it gently, then looked back at him as if asking what to do next. "We'll have to go find it," he said, pointing toward the forest. Out there, the mother dragon slowly blinked, then lowered her head beside her child, as if struggling with the idea of leaving. She didn't want to go far. She didn't want to leave the baby even for a moment. Her body trembled with worry. He understood immediately. "I know," he said gently. "You don't want to leave your little one. I wouldn't either." He rubbed the back of his neck, thinking hard. They couldn't leave the baby alone, and taking the baby outside in its weak condition might be dangerous. The cold night air could drain its energy even faster. The mother dragon made a soft, uneasy hum, almost like she was fighting a decision inside her heart. She carefully lifted the baby with her front limbs, then pressed it close to her chest. She was determined. If they needed to go, she would carry her child with her. He stepped forward quickly. Careful. Don't strain yourself. She paused and looked at him with eyes that were tired but full of courage. She wasn't willing to take risks, but she also wasn't willing to give up Dot. The handyman nodded slowly. All right. We go together. All of us. The mother dragon blinked once, as if agreeing. He grabbed a small lantern from the shelf, though the moonlight outside was strong enough to guide them. Still, he liked having a bit of light he could control. Then he stepped toward the door and pushed it open. Cool air swept into the workshop, brushing past their faces. The mother dragon stood up slowly, with the baby held close, her wings tight against her body. She followed him out the door carefully, making sure not to bump anything. The moment her feet touched the ground outside, she lifted her head to the sky. Her eyes seemed to search the stars, almost like she was trying to remember something, maybe a direction, maybe an instinct passed down from her kind. He watched her for a moment. She wasn't just a creature. She was a parent. A desperate, tired parent trying to do whatever it took to keep her child alive. He began walking toward the forest path again. The mother dragon followed right behind him, her heavy steps shaking the ground slightly. The baby dragon let out a weak sound as she adjusted how she held it, making a soft, soothing noise in response. Dot, as they moved deeper into the woods, the night seemed to shift around them. The trees stood tall and quiet, their leaves whispering with every breath of wind. The lantern's glow flickered across the trunks, and the forest floor crackled softly under their feet. He didn't know exactly where to go, but the mother dragon seemed to sense something. After they passed the first row of trees, she walked a little faster, nudging him gently with her head, as if telling him to follow her instead. He stepped aside. You lead, he said softly. She lowered her head once in acknowledgement, then continued forward with careful steps. She didn't run. She didn't rush. She moved like she was following a faint scent and energy trail. He couldn't feel, but she clearly could. They walked for several minutes, weaving through trees and stepping over fallen branches. The deeper they went, the stronger the forest felt around them. The air changed, becoming cooler, but also filled with a strange tingling sensation. It was subtle, but he felt it along his skin. Like the atmosphere held a hidden current. Dot, the mother dragon stopped suddenly and lifted her head, sniffing the air. The handyman watched her muscles tense, not with fear, but with recognition. Dot, she began walking again, this time toward a narrow passage between two large rocks. He followed quietly, careful not to trip over the roots that twisted across the ground. The lantern flickered again, but he tightened his grip and kept moving. After squeezing through the rock passage, the trees opened into a small clearing, a place he had never seen before. The air here glowed faintly, almost like tiny blue dust particles floated around, lighting the darkness. He looked around in surprise. What is this place? The mother dragon walked ahead and lowered her body near the center of the clearing. There, half buried in the ground, was something larger than the mineral he had found earlier. It was glowing softly with the same pulsing energy, the same heartbeat-like rhythm. Large shard of the same mineral. Dot, no wonder she had sensed this place. He approached the shard carefully. It was about the size of a small stool, glowing bright enough to light up the entire clearing. The energy coming from it was gentle, almost calming. This could work, he whispered. The mother dragon lowered her child closer to the shard. The baby's small body reacted immediately, its fading glow brightening just a little. The mother let out a soft sound of relief. Dot, but the shard was too large to move. Even if the mother dragon tried, it was embedded deep in the ground. They needed to extract only a piece, something strong enough to help, but small enough to carry back. The handyman looked around for something he could use. He had brought no tools, but the forest often held its own solutions. He spotted a sturdy fallen branch and picked it up. Using it like a lever, he pressed it against the side of the shard. It didn't move much, but a small fragment at the surface cracked slightly. The mother dragon watched closely. When she saw him struggling, she gently pressed her claws against the shard and tapped it once with surprising delicacy. A small chunk loosened and slid free, glowing brightly as it landed on the ground. He let out a breath. "Thank you." She nudged the glowing piece toward him, trusting him to prepare it in a way the baby could use. He picked up the shard and held it carefully. It was warm and light, almost humming in his hands. The baby dragon let out a soft chirp, reaching weakly toward the glow. "We need to get this back to the workshop," he said. "We can make something better there." The mother dragon nodded slightly, lifting her baby close against her chest again. She turned toward the path, ready to follow him back. As they walked out of the clearing, the shard glowed in his hand, lighting the way. The mother dragon stayed close behind him, her eyes constantly checking on her child, her breaths deep and steady with determination. The forest no longer felt dark or cold. The glow made it feel alive, like it was guiding them home. When they finally stepped out of the trees and saw the workshop again, a quiet relief washed over him. They were back. And this time, they had something stronger, something with a chance to truly save the baby dragon. He pushed the workshop door open, letting the soft glow spill inside. The mother dragon entered behind him, lowering her child gently onto the warm cloth on the table. He placed the glowing shard beside the baby, feeling its energy pulse through the air. The mother dragon made a soft, hopeful sound, pressing her forehead gently against her child. He took a deep breath. "Now we do everything we can," he said softly, and the real fight to save the baby dragon's life began again, stronger than before. The next morning began with a strange mix of calm and worry. The handyman woke up earlier than usual, even before the sun had fully risen. He did not need an alarm. His mind had already been awake for hours. All night, he had been thinking about the little dragon recovering in his workshop, and his mother, who trusted him more than her own kind. It was a responsibility he had never asked for, but somehow felt right to carry. He stepped outside and felt the cool morning air brush against his face. The sky still had a layer of soft blue and purple, the kind that lasts only a few minutes before daylight takes over. As he walked toward the workshop door, he slowed down, wondering how he would find the young dragon today. He hoped the medicines and special mixture he made last night were helping. When he pushed the door open, the first thing he heard was a small, weak sound, almost like a soft squeak. He rushed inside and found the little creature lying on a pile of old blankets. Its breathing was still slow, but at least steady. The dragon's eyes fluttered open, and for a moment, it looked directly at him with a quiet trust. "You're hanging in there?" he whispered, even though he knew the young dragon couldn't understand his words. Still, the tone mattered. He quickly checked the temperature of the small heater he set up beside the dragon. It was warm enough to comfort the creature, but not hot enough to harm it. Then he picked up the small bowl with the mixture he had made: water, ground herbs, and a tiny bit of mineral dust he found near the river. He had no idea if this was exactly right, but he knew the little one needed energy. "Let's try this again," he murmured. He gently lifted the dragon's head with the cloth and slowly helped it drink. It took a little, then a little more, and after a few seconds, it made a soft chirping sound as if asking for more. That tiny improvement made him breathe out in relief. He didn't realize how tense he had been. Behind him, the workshop door rattled lightly. He turned quickly, thinking maybe it was the wind. But when he stepped closer, he froze. Moving shadows danced outside, and he instantly knew what they were: big wings brushing against the tree branches. The mother dragon was back. Deep rumble came from outside not a roar. Not aggressive, just a heavy, emotional sound. He slowly opened the door, keeping his hands low to show he had nothing threatening. The dragon stood there, its huge golden eyes filled with a nervous shine. She was large, but not terrifying. She looked tired and worried, her scales dimmer than before. She lowered her head and sniffed the air, searching for her young. When she sensed its scent coming from inside the workshop, she tried to move forward. But the handyman raised his hands gently, signaling her to stay calm. "You can come in, but slow," he said, mostly talking to himself because he doubted she understood his words. Still, his calm tone mattered. Her breathing steadied, and step by step, she lowered her huge body to fit through the doorway. The workshop suddenly felt tiny. Her wings tucked in close to her sides. Her long neck curved softly as she reached toward her baby. She made a small trembling sound, the same kind a mother might make. After spending hours worrying the little dragon, lifted its head and gave a weak chirp. The mother closed, her eyes as if relief washed through her entire body. The handyman stepped back and let them reconnect. He didn't want to interrupt. He watched quietly as she lowered her snout and gently nudged her young one. The scene filled the workshop with an emotional warmth he hadn't felt in years. Even though this was an alien creature from somewhere far beyond Earth, the way she looked at her sick child felt universal. Anyone could understand it. After a few minutes, the dragon raised her head and looked at him. Her eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in deep thought. She knew he had been taking care of the little one. She blinked slowly, and somehow that one gesture felt like appreciation. He took a cautious step forward and pointed to the heater and the bowl of mixture. "I'm trying my best," he said gently. "It's getting better." The dragon tilted her head as if she was listening. Then she slowly extended one claw toward him, not attacking, but offering something. In her palm sat a small glowing stone, warm and shimmering with soft light. It looked like something from another world, and it pulsed as if alive. He hesitated. "Is this for me?" he asked. The dragon nodded once, slow, deliberate. He carefully took the stone. It felt warm and hummed faintly, almost like it had its own heartbeat. He didn't know what it was, but he understood the meaning behind the gesture. It was a gift, a thank you. He held it close, unsure how to respond. "You don't have to thank me. I just didn't want to see a little one suffering." The dragon blinked again and then leaned close to her baby. She gently pushed it toward him, letting him check it again. That trust struck him deeper than he expected. In his life, people barely trusted him with small things. Yet here was a creature 10 times his size, trusting him with her world. The young dragon made a small sound, trying to lift its wings. The mother nudged it softly, as if encouraging it. The handyman quickly noticed the improvement. Its eyes were no longer dull, and its breathing had become stronger. "You're getting better," he whispered, smiling. For a while, the three of them stayed together inside the small workshop. It was a strange moment, quiet, warm, and full of new understanding. The mother dragon didn't move away. She kept her body low, almost curling protectively around her baby, and creating a safe space for the handyman too. It almost felt like she had accepted him as part of her small circle of safety. Hours passed like this. The baby dragon slowly became more active. It even tried to stand for a moment, wobbling on its little legs. The mother made a proud, soft rumbling sound, and the handyman couldn't help but laugh quietly. Seeing the little dragon alive and slowly recovering gave him a feeling he hadn't felt in a long time. But as the sun rose higher, the mother dragon suddenly lifted her head. She looked toward the forest, as if hearing something distant. Her wings twitched, and her breathing shifted to a more alert rhythm. The handyman followed her gaze, but saw nothing. "What is it?" he whispered. The mother dragon carefully nudged her baby closer to him, gently pushing it into his arms again. It wasn't a farewell gesture. It was a signal. Warning, something was coming. He held the young dragon, confused and tense, while the mother dragon's wings stretched halfway open. She looked at him one more time with urgency in her eyes, then turned her head sharply toward the forest. Again, the peaceful morning had changed. Something had disturbed the quiet. The handyman's heart began to pound. He didn't know what danger was out there, but he knew one thing for sure. The story was far from over. He looked down at the baby dragon resting against his chest, then at its mother, who was preparing herself for whatever was happening outside. "All right," he whispered, steadying his breath. "Whatever this is, we'll face it." And with that, part 4 of their strange, unexpected journey came to a tense and emotional close, pushing all of them toward a moment they could not avoid. The forest stood strangely quiet, as if something had pressed a finger against the world and told every living thing to stay still. The handyman could feel the tension in the air. Even the leaves moved differently, shaking in sudden tiny motions instead of drifting naturally. The baby dragon rested against his chest, and although it had gained a little strength, it was still fragile. Its warm breath touched his shirt in soft bursts. The mother dragon stayed near the doorway, her wings half open, her eyes glowing faint with caution. She didn't growl or roar. She simply watched the trees with a focus that came from instinct. Whatever she sensed, it wasn't something he could see or hear yet. "Is something following you?" he whispered toward her, not really expecting an answer. Still, her slow blink told him enough. The mother dragon shifted her weight and stepped back outside. She stretched her wings out fully, casting a massive shadow that covered half the workshop wall. The handyman followed carefully, cradling the baby dragon in his arms like someone holding a sick child. He peered into the trees, his heartbeat thudding against his ribs. A faint hum rolled through the air. Not the sound of an animal. Not the wind. Something else. Something mechanical. His throat tightened. No, that can't be good. He took a few steps forward, but the mother dragon quickly blocked him with her tail. She wasn't pushing him away, just keeping him from stepping into danger. She looked at him with urgency again, the same look she gave when the baby was struggling to breathe. She trusted him, but she also wanted him to stay safe. "You want me to stay back?" he murmured. "All right, I will." The humming sound grew louder, echoing between the trees. Birds suddenly flew upward in messy flocks, as if trying to escape. Light flickered deeper in the woods, thin beams weaving through the branches like searching eyes. His worry deepened. "Someone else found you," he whispered, mostly to himself. He didn't know who or what, but he understood something clearly. Someone had tracked the dragon's presence. Maybe the mother dragon had been running from something before she came here. Maybe the baby's sickness wasn't the only threat she was fighting. The humming approached the clearing. Then, through the trees, shapes appeared, sleek metal drones floating smoothly through the forest. They didn't look like something local people could build. They were too advanced, too organized, moving in perfect formation. The mother dragon stepped forward, her wings rising in a slow, protective arc. She didn't attack. She simply stood like a wall between her child and whatever those machines wanted. Her tail curled around the handyman, shielding him and the baby. He swallowed hard, gripping the little dragon a bit tighter. "Easy, stay calm," he whispered, though he couldn't tell if the words were meant for the baby or for himself. 3 drones hovered above the clearing. Their surfaces reflected the morning sun like polished mirrors. A soft scanning light flowed across the ground, touching the grass, the workshop walls, the mother dragon's wings. The handyman took one cautious step back. The mother dragon lowered her head, preparing to shield her young. But the drones didn't fire. They simply scanned. Their mechanical eyes blinked with pale blue light, analyzing. Suddenly, one of the drones projected a soft glowing pattern into the air, a strange symbol, swirling like a spiral with tiny dots around it. The mother dragon went completely still. The handyman stared at the symbol, confused. "What is that? Do you know it?" The dragon's body relaxed just a little. Her wings lowered halfway, and the glow in her eyes softened. She recognized something. The spiral symbol repeated, and her chest rumbled in a tone the handyman hadn't heard before. Gentle, almost relieved. He watched, trying to understand. "They're not here to hurt you?" The mother dragon stepped forward again, calmer now. The drones moved in closer, scanning her more carefully this time. The spiral symbol changed into a small floating circle of light, pulsing lightly like a heartbeat. Then something unexpected happened. The baby dragon in his arms reacted to it. The little creature lifted its head weakly and chirped, reaching toward the floating symbol. The drones adjusted their scanners to focus on the baby. The handyman held the child a little tighter. "Easy now. Don't scare the little one." The mother dragon gave a soft nudge with her snout, pushing his hands gently. She wanted him to bring the baby closer to the floating symbol. He hesitated only a moment before stepping forward. As the baby came near the projected circle, a warm beam of light washed over its body. The little dragon blinked and gave a surprisingly strong chirp. The light traveled over its wings, chest, and face, scanning with gentle precision. After a few moments, the beam faded. The baby let out a tiny sigh and relaxed. The handyman could feel a small but noticeable change. It felt stronger. Its breathing smoother. It even tried to move its claws slightly, something it hadn't done in hours. He looked at the mother dragon. "They're helping, aren't they?" She blinked slowly again, confirming. The drones floated higher, their lights pulsing brighter. Then they projected a new symbol, 3 circles, slowly drifting apart like a map. The mother dragon watched closely, then looked toward the sky. The handyman followed her gaze. A faint shimmer appeared high above the treetops, almost like heat waves rising in the air. Slowly, a circular opening began forming, a soft, swirling portal, glowing with the same colors the drones used. It was quiet and calm, not violent or dangerous. It looked almost like a gentle doorway made of light. The mother dragon stepped toward the portal. She turned back to the handyman, lowering her head so he could see her eyes clearly. There was no fear in them now, only calm and deep gratitude. "You're going home," he said softly. She lowered her head further and gently brushed her snout against his shoulder. The touch was warm and unexpectedly gentle. He felt the pressure, the emotion, the silent thank you. The baby dragon chirped softly in his arms, looking between him and its mother. He lifted it up slowly, letting the mother take it. She wrapped her wings around the child protectively and brought it close to her chest. The handyman took a step back, feeling a bittersweet ache in his heart. He had grown attached to the little creature, even though he didn't say it out loud. But he knew this was right. They belonged somewhere else, somewhere safe. One of the drones floated closer to him, projecting another small light. It formed into a tiny, shimmering symbol just above his hand. As he watched, the symbol solidified into a small object, a glowing stone, similar to the one the mother dragon had given him earlier, but brighter, pulsing gently in his palm. He stared at it. "Another gift?" The drone blinked slowly, as if answering yes. The mother dragon turned toward the portal, her wings spreading wide. The light reflected beautifully off her scales, making her look strong again, almost regal. She stepped forward with her child held close. Before entering the portal, she looked back one last time at him. He simply nodded. "Take care of your little one." She blinked slow, grateful, then stepped through the glowing doorway. A baby dragon gave one final chirp before disappearing into the soft swirl of light. The drones followed them inside, one by one. The portal shimmered softly for a few seconds more, then closed gently like a curtain falling. The clearing fell silent again. Only the wind moved through the trees. The handyman stood there with the glowing stone in his hand, feeling strangely empty and full at the same time. He took a deep breath and looked toward the sky where the portal had disappeared. His workshop felt quieter when he walked back inside, but not in a sad way. More like a place where something meaningful had happened, something he would never forget. He placed the glowing stone next to the first one on his workbench. They pulsed softly in sync, glowing with a warm rhythm. He sat down on the old wooden stool and let out a long breath. Well, that was one strange week, he said to himself with a tired smile. But he knew it wasn't really strange. It was extraordinary. He had helped a life from another world. He had earned the trust of a creature people wouldn't believe existed. He had done something that mattered. And even though the dragons were gone, he knew their story would stay with him forever. Not as a secret or something to brag about, but as a quiet memory that would bring him comfort on difficult days. Outside, the morning sun grew brighter, spreading golden light across the yard. The world felt the same, yet somehow better. He stepped out of the workshop, looked at the trees, and felt a calm he hadn't felt in years. Life would go on. He would fix roofs, repair machines, and help people in his small town like always. But deep inside, he carried a piece of something magical, something that reminded him that kindness mattered, even across different worlds. And somewhere far beyond Earth, a mother dragon flew with her healed child, carrying the memory of a human who had shown them compassion when they needed it most. Their paths had crossed for only a short time, but it was enough to change them all.